The Doctrine of Christ according to the First Epistle of John by Robert Law. The chief Christological passage in this epistle promulgates the same truth in the same way. On the one side of an equation, the divine being who is the Word of life, the Christ, the Son of God. On the other side, the human Jesus. But the two sides of the equation are not only equivalent, they are identical. Without ceasing to be what he is, the Son of God has become the human Jesus. And Jesus, without ceasing to be truly human, is the Son of God. Now it's clear that these titles imply the pretemporal existence of the person to whom they are applied. While the monotheism of the Gnostic, for him Christ could be nothing more than an emanation from the eternal God, for the writer of this epistle, he is himself eternal and divine. Now we must not read into this epistle the full Trinitarian doctrine of the hypostatic union of sonship. Yet all the elements of that problem are present here, in the implication that Jesus Christ, in his pre-incarnate form of being, existed eternally in an essential unity of nature with God. Now the truth of the epistle is Christological, not theological. Its concern is the relation is not upon the Divine Father and the Divine Son, but upon the relation of the Divine Son to the historic Jesus. And now we need to look more closely at the various forms in which this relation is defined. Here's what John says. Every spirit that confesses Jesus as the Christ come in the flesh is of God. Now this statement, simple as it is of exquisite precision. The verb come implies the pre-existence of Christ, and in the perfect tense, that verb points to his coming not only as an historical event, but as an abiding fact. The Word has become flesh forever. And we have in the noun sarx indicated the fullness of his participation in human nature, the flesh being the element of this which is most obvious in contrast with his former state of being. And even the preposition en is of pregnant significance, because the Gnostics believed that Christ came into the flesh, but the assertion here is that he has so come into the flesh as to abide therein. The Incarnation is a permanent union of the divine with human nature. And finally, this one sentence suggests that this union is realized in the self-identity of a person, namely Jesus Christ, who is at once divine and human. Now, we must not read into this text later Christological developments. The Orthodox formula, one person in two natures, is implied, but the truth in all its simplicity and in all the majesty of its consequences is that of one person in two states, a pre-incarnate and an incarnate state of being. And without change of personal identity, the eternal Son of God is become and forever continues to be Jesus. Jesus is the Son of God, the Christ, come in the flesh. Now, an important part of our subject is the practical significance of the doctrine. John is not concerned about theology or orthodoxy when he proclaims the truth of the Incarnation, but solely from a sense of its supreme necessity to the spiritual life of the church and even the salvation of the world. And that is because he perceives in the Gnostic denial of it the extinction of the light of life which the gospel has brought to man is imminent. Thus, in introducing the subject, John, first of all, sets himself to awaken in the minds of his readers an adequate perception of its gravity. He says, I write to you, not because you know not the truth, but because you know it, and that no lie is of the truth. He writes because they know the truth, and he arouses them to realize the significance of that knowledge. He wants to quicken their sense of the irreconcilable opposition of truth and falsehood, and of its stupendous import in this instance. The issue was no matter a mere difference of opinion. The alternative was between making truth or falsehood, and that on the greatest of all subjects, the guide of life. Truth or falsehood. Who is the liar, he passionately exclaims, but he that denies that Jesus is the Christ. And then, without conjunction or connecting particle of any kind, clause follows upon clause like the blows of a hammer. This is the Antichrist, he that denies the Father and the Son. Whosoever denies the Son hath not even the Father. He that confesses the Son hath the Father also. Now here we see clearly the first of the great practical consequences which depend upon the Incarnation. First of all, it alone secures and guarantees the Christian revelation of God. And with its denial, that revelation is immediately canceled. John says, he that hath not the Son hath not even the Father. Contrary to what the intention of the Gnostic leaders may have been, the result was that by taking away the real divine sonship of Jesus, they subverted the divine fatherhood itself. Now this argument is not abstract logic. It is concrete and experimental. What is in question is not God's absolute being, but as John puts it, our having, not fatherhood and sonship as inherent in the divine nature, but the revelation to men of the Father in the Son. Now, thus refusing to recognize more than a shadowy and dubious connection between the historic Jesus and the eternal Son of God, this Gnosticism took away the one medium through which a sure and satisfying revelation of the eternal Father has been given to the world. For the Gnostic, it was still true that no man had seen God at any time, the Christian would agree. But it was not true, according to the Gnostic, that the only begotten Son had declared him or revealed him. Not true that he who had seen Jesus had seen the Father. With the denial of Jesus as the full personal incarnation of the divine, the whole Christian conception of God was but the baseless fabric of a vision having no point of contact with the world of known fact. As far as Gnosticism was concerned, the Apostle's statement was entirely true. Its God was a being so absolutely transcendent as to be incapable of an actual relation to the human race. And the gulf between absolute deity and finite being remained unbridged, even though it has an intricate hierarchy of semi-divine intermediaries. The Apostle's contention is that to deny the Son is to be unable to retain even the Father. And this fact is no less verified in the history of modern thought. It's not a matter of argument, but of fact, that the God consciousness finds its true object most clearly in Jesus Christ. and that when God is not found in Christ, he is not ultimately found anywhere, either in nature or in history. Theism, believing in God, does not ultimately survive the rejection of Christ as the personal incarnation of God. The process of thought that makes necessary the denial of the supernatural in Jesus has agnosticism as its inevitable goal. Thank you.